As we explore Google Sheets today, we are going to look at something that you may not realize even exists, or if you do, you may not have even tried some of its options. I will bet that you probably know how to do a copy and a paste, but did you know you could also copy and then paste special? Now, paste special has some great features that are wonderful shortcuts when you're trying to, well, do work on some formatting or doing some copying of information from one place to another and making sure that, say, your formulas and your text are exactly the way you want them. And you can do it so simply sometimes with paste special when it would take a lot of work to do it any other way. So I'm really happy to introduce this to you as we go through this little video. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's get started looking at some of those features with Paste Special. For our first example today, we look at this spreadsheet and it has first name, last name, and then it has the first and last name combined into one cell. Let's say that I want to copy this first name. Well, I would select it and then I can go to Edit and I can come down to Copy, or I can use my keyboard shortcut of Control C, either way. And then I would need to click in the cell where I want to paste, and again I could go back to Edit and then come down to Paste, which is Control V, and paste it in. Now let me undo, because I could also come to a name, do a right click, and copy is a choice, and again I have that option of Control C if I'd rather. And then I could also go to the cell where I want to paste that information, do a right click, and select Paste. And again, I have that option of also using a keyboard shortcut. Well, let me undo yet again, because we have another choice here that can really help us with some very specific kinds of information. So we see that we have, of course, the first and the last name, and then we have the combined name. Now, we didn't type all of that last name, first name here in column D. We used a formula, and that formula is called concatenate. So as we look at it in the formula bar, we can see that, of course, it starts with an equal sign and then the name of the function, concatenate. And then in the parentheses, we have B2, which is the last name, and then we have in quotes, comma, space, because we do want to put space between the last name and the first name, and then A2, which is the first name. And that's how we came up with this particular cell information. And people will do this from time to time when they have a really large spreadsheet and they're just trying to smash everything together as much as possible. Sometimes combining names, if you don't need to keep them separated, can be a really nice trick. But what if you decide that columns A and B are just redundant? Why do you have them? You have the names combined here in D. Well, what happens is this. And let me in fact select A, B, and C. Let me do a right click. And we're going to delete columns A through C. And now my names have disappeared because they can't refer to anything. The cells that the formulas were looking at to get their information have now been deleted. So not only have I deleted redundant information, but I've also deleted kind of the good stuff, the names that I wanted to keep. So let's undo, because there is a fix, and that is I can select these names in column D, and I can come up to Edit, and I can copy them as they are, and then I can come back to D2, which is the first cell in that column, and then I can go to Edit, and this is where you may not realize you can actually paste on top of something you've copied. So we'll come down to Paste Special, and what we're going to do is we're going to paste the values, the answers to that formula right on top of where we used to have the formula. So we'll say values only. Notice also that if you like keyboard shortcuts, you could use Control-Shift-V, but we'll do values only. And so now when I look at that formula bar, you can see that I no longer have a formula in any of those cells. And now if I select A, B, and C, and I'm just going to do a right click and again delete columns A through C, I still now have the names that I can use. Now sometimes you may want to do something like this as you go from year to year. It may be that your final totals for 1 year are all based on a formula, but you just want to copy those numbers to a new workbook or a new sheet. You don't want to copy the formulas as well. So copy and paste values can be such a great help under specific circumstances, but such a wonder that keeps you from retyping a whole lot of stuff. For our next example, we have, well, December sales and then January sales. And December sales are at least formatted with commas, although the numbers here, the detail numbers, do not have decimal places. On the other hand, the totals have dollar signs, and they're really kind of formatted for currency because they have 2 decimal places after the whole number. What we would like to do is format January sales like we formatted December sales. Now this is kind of fun. I can come up to one of the cells that has the formatting that I want for the details, and I can go to Edit and Copy, and then I can go to Edit and Paste Special. This time it would be Format Only. So let me decide where I'm going to put that format. I'm going to select all of these cells in B9 through F11, and I'll Edit, Paste Special, Format Only, and just that quickly I have the comma styles that I really like. Now I could also do the same thing here for column G, where I can click in one of the cells that is formatted for currency, come up to Edit and Copy. Now I can select those cells that I also want to have the dollar signs, the currency format, Edit, Paste Special, Format Only. I'm not going to copy the formulas as well, just the formatting. And now I have formatting for currency. In our next example, we have had the privilege of buying 2 cars within just a couple of months of each other. And so for car 1, we've had it a little bit longer than car 2, but we decided that we wanted to keep track of its mileage. And so in D3, we have the formula, at least the beginning formula, for determining the miles per gallon. Now, the simple, basic miles per gallon formula is that you take the mileage that's on the odometer here in C3 and you divide it by the number of gallons that you then replenish, that you put back into the car. And so for our first miles per gallon, we have C3 divided by B3. Now, it gets a little more complicated the next time you fill your car up, because you can't just look at the odometer and then divide by however many gallons went in. You first need to take that odometer reading and subtract from it the previous odometer reading. And so as we look at D4, we can see that we have C4 and subtracting from it C3, so this 900 miles, and subtracting from it the 500 miles. And then we'll divide that answer by B4, the number of gallons that we used this time. Now, we can use this to our advantage to then fill in information for car 2. And car 2, we haven't even started yet with a first formula, so what I want to do is come over to D3, and I want to go to Edit and Copy. And now I'm going to go over to I3. And this is where I want to do my paste special. Now this is really helpful because generally when we write a formula we use that fill handle and we just copy straight across, except if we did that in this case we would be deleting important information. So I'm just going to click in I3, go back to Edit, Paste Special, and what we're going to do is paste the formula. Now as we look at this, it's so interesting because we can see that it has adjusted in this formula bar for the cells that are in G and H. Well, let's do the same thing here then in D4, where we want to copy that formula, edit and copy. Then let's come down to I4, and again we're going to edit and paste special. Not necessarily the formatting, we don't care, although it'd be kind of nice, but what we really want is that formula. We've worked hard on it, we had to think about it, maybe even had to look it up. We're going to click on Formula Only, and so now as we look at the formula we can see that not only has it adjusted for where it is in the spreadsheet, but it has also copied in all of that important information about what I subtract and what I divide to get my answer. That is just such a helpful tool. As we look at our next example, we see something really interesting here in column D and E, and F, where we have some cells that have a blue background and others that don't. Well, what causes that is conditional formatting, meaning that we've set up a rule, and if the cells meet the criteria of the rule, then we will have some sort of formatting, conditional formatting. And in fact, if I just select all of the cells that have numbers, probably the easiest way to find out what that conditional formatting is to go to the menu bar to Format, and then almost at the bottom of that list we have conditional formatting, and when I click on that, on the right hand side it tells me that I've set up a rule so that if a cell has a value that's less than or equal to 70, I'm going to make that text bold and I'm going to put in a blue background. Well, I think that's just a great idea. And the thing is, that was just for week 2. So this new week, I haven't even put week 3 in yet, but I want to have that same conditional formatting. Well, what I can do is select where I have my original formatting, and I can edit and copy. Then I can come down to my new week, select all of those cells, go back up to Edit, Paste Special, and the fourth choice is Conditional Formatting Only. We'll click on that, and now as I click off, I can see that I'm continuing that pattern of bolding and putting in blue highlighting any of the cells that are 70 or less. That could be amazingly helpful, and I don't have to use just one rule. I can have several conditional formatting rules. Our next example shows something that you may not see very often. That is called data validation. And generally I think what happens is people create their spreadsheet, they enter all sorts of information, and then by the time they've put in that information, they've hit a deadline and they need to go on to something else. And so they just don't feel the need maybe to make sure that in the future data that is put in is accurate. But whoever created this particular little list said, you know what, I want to be sure that when I type my information accurately. And you can see that evidently there's a problem here with this cell that says -1 because it has a red triangle in the upper right. Now, same thing here as I hover my mouse over it in F5, where it looks like 60, but in fact it's a 6 and an O, a letter O, and not a number 0. And so this message, while it does say that you have an issue here with what is in this cell, it may not be very accurate, and so sometimes data validation messages could be a little misleading. This should probably say something like input must be greater than 0 and a number, something like that. But in any case, it really lets us know that we need to go back and fix 2 of the cells within this table. Now, when I select all of this information in this little table, let me also just show you where that was created. All you need to do is go to Data and then down to Data Validation. And so it shows that there is a cell range, and you just simply select the cells. And then the criteria, the rule, well, I said it was a number greater than 0, but you have a lot of choices there to create the criteria. And then you can decide if you want to have a message or not, and I just simply typed in, enter a number greater than 0, and then I would save it. So we can have different kinds of data validation within a spreadsheet. Well, we've decided that we want to have this same thing, even the same rule and the same message here in this next little table. And what we need to do then to get our data validation from one table to another is we're going to select our first table, and we're going to go to Edit and Copy. And then we'll come down to our second table, and we're going to Edit and Paste Special, but this time we're going to select Data Validation Only. And now as we look at that, look here in C10, we have the red triangle now for the -5. If I hover my mouse, it says no, it must be greater than 0. And we also have one here in, what is that, F9, that again says input must be greater than 0. Now we realize that that's an O and not a 0. And so it's just not reading. It doesn't know what to do, but it knows there's a problem. And so I do get that error message. And so paste special data validation could be just life-changing and maybe save a job from time to time, so that because you can make sure that the data that is in your spreadsheet is absolutely accurate and follows rules. Sometimes you find yourself creating a spreadsheet from scratch, and you start out typing the row headings and the column headings, and then you start putting in data, and you realize that maybe you should have rearranged some things before you started typing. Now, if you're not too far along in the process, here is something that can save you so much typing by simply doing a simple copy and paste special. So in this case, we realized that having the months listed vertically is just not going to work right. So we're going to copy, first of all, select, and then go to Edit and Copy those particular cells. And let's say that we just want to put them starting at B1 instead. So I'll click in B1. Now we're going to go back to Edit, Paste Special, and this time what we are going to do is transposed. So transposed takes the range of cells that you have. If they're vertical, it will make them horizontal. If they're horizontal, it will make them vertical. All you do is click in the first cell of where the rest of the cells are going to appear. So we'll click Transposed, and now we have the months of the year going across our spreadsheet instead of up and down. As I look at our new worksheet, I see that, well, we just have a lot of blank cells. All of the columns are exactly the same width. And for whatever reason, I've decided that I really like the column width of this one column here in our values sheet, where we put all the names together. It's just slightly wider, and that would suit my purpose perfectly. Now sometimes you're going to use this paste special within the same sheet, but other times you're going to use this very same idea for different sheets. So in this case, we have column A that is a really great column width. So I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to copy. Then I'm going to come over to this blank sheet and I'm going to go to Edit, Paste Special, and I can copy the column width only. Click on it, and there's that column width. Now notice that when I did that, I did not copy the person's name. I only copied the column width. Let's do that again. I'm going to click on a person's name, and I'm going to edit and copy. And generally when you copy, it would be the text, right? But we're going to go to then back to column width sheet here and select, say, a different column, and we're going to edit, paste special, column width only, and yeah, it's just the column width, not the text too. For our last example today, we have in A1 through D6 just a numbering table of some kind, and whether it's a seating chart or some other kind of table, we've decided that while we like the numbers and we like the order that they're in, that kind of thing, when we copy this, we would like to avoid copying the borders. And sometimes when you work with spreadsheets, you copy a cell, the border also copies, and then you find yourself reformatting cells because the borders have copied over. So this could be just a wonderful help when you're working with a spreadsheet, but you need to copy the cell contents and not the borders that go around those cell contents. So what we're going to do is select A1 through D6, and we're going to edit and paste. And then I'm just going to click over here in F1, and we're going to paste special. So we'll go to edit, down to paste special, and the last choice down here at the bottom is all except borders. So we'll click on that. And when I click off, you can see that now I have copied those numbers exactly, but I don't have the formatting that was originally around them. To learn even more, be sure to visit mymcpl.org/online learning, where you will find great resources such as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Be sure to join us every week as we premiere 2 new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or you can find us on YouTube at our MCPL MO channel, where you can find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.